Hi, welcome back to my channel, or a very warm welcome if you're new here. My name is Sophie, and in this video I wanted to share some of my favourite Asian inspired fantasy books. I discovered my love of Asian inspired fantasy around 4 years ago. So I hadn't been reading a lot of fantasy and I wanted to get back into fantasy, but I was getting a bit tired of the same kind of stories with the same kind of characters and similar settings. So I was looking for something a little bit different to the stories that I had read in the fantasy genre, specifically those with more diversity. At that time, I was also becoming a lot more interested in mythology and folklore from around the world. So I also wanted to learn more about Asian mythology. Then I read Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan, and it immediately became one of my favourite books. And it really opened up the door for me to discover more similar Asian-inspired fantasy. And since then, I've read a lot more similar stories. So I should also mention before I get started that I am specifically referring to East Asian fantasy in this video, as the majority of this list are very much Chinese-inspired, but I do also have one Korean-inspired fantasy, and also the author Sue Lynn Tan is Malaysian, so Southeast Asian. So first up is the book that started it all, and this is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sue Lynn Tan. And this is one of my favourite books, and it is the first in the Celestial Kingdom duology, and it is a romantic fantasy inspired by the legend of the Chinese moon goddess. And she was exiled from the Celestial Kingdom by the Celestial Emperor for stealing his elixir of immortality. The moon goddess was also hiding the fact that she had a daughter called Jingyin, who was living on the moon with her. But one day Jingyin's existence is uncovered and she is forced to flee her home for protection. So she ends up travelling to the Celestial Kingdom on a cloud, and she is forced to disguise herself, and she joins the Celestial Army. She learns more about archery and also about magic. And she wants to earn recognition so that she can free her mother. So along the way, she does make allies, she does face betrayals, she also confronts powerful immortals and does find love, doing all of this while navigating court politics and her own destiny. So Jingyin has very much led a sheltered life. She has lived with her mother without many other people for company, and she knows nothing really of what lies in the Celestial Kingdom. So we're kind of discovering more about the place at the same time that she is discovering the world. But I adored this book so much. I had a great time. You can see that I've tabbed it. This is also the beautiful Fairyly edition, which is one of my favourite books that I own. And I just thought the world building was excellent, and I really loved Sue Lynn Tan's way of writing. It felt very beautiful, very elegant, and also filled with emotion and just beautiful descriptions, and it really felt like being part of a dream world. I knew nothing of this myth before I started, but I was soon captivated by the story, and I found it very difficult to put this book down. I just wanted to keep reading, and it is really one of those books that has stayed with me long after I finished it. I also do love the characters, and there are also quite a lot of plot twists along the way. And yeah, I would highly recommend this as a starting point if you're looking for fantasy which is inspired by Chinese mythology and folklore. Then the next book that I want to mention is the sequel to this, and this is Heart of the Sun Warrior. And again, it is a beautiful Fairyly edition, and I love this duology. So this kind of picks up a year after the end of Daughter of the Moon Goddess. So I'm not gonna tell you too much about the plot because I don't want to spoil the first book if you haven't read that. But this is very much following Jingyin as she tries to decide what her heart wants, and also she is affected by the events of the first book. And we see what impact that has had on her and how she has changed from when we first met her. We also find out more about her father, who is the legendary archer Hoi Yi. And I really enjoyed being back in the world of the Celestial Kingdom. I didn't love this as much as the first book, but it was still a really good read, and I thought it was a very good conclusion to the series. So we do come back to a lot of the characters who we met in Daughter of the Moon Goddess, and I do feel it expands the world a lot more, and we do meet some other characters who were kind of alluded to in the first book. But yeah, now we find out a lot more about them, and I thought it was very interesting. And again, it has Sue Lynn Tan's signature writing style. So beautiful writing and beautiful world building. And again, I was captivated and had to keep reading. And then we do actually have another book that is set in this universe, and this is Tales of the Celestial Kingdom. And this is a really tiny book which has a lot of short stories which are set in the universe. So if you are interested in picking this one up, then I would definitely recommend reading the duology first, because it does contain spoilers for both of those books. So I think there's some set before and then during the first book, and then during the second book and afterwards. So it really tells stories that happened off the page during the main duology. And once again, this is the stunning Fairy edition, so all three of them match, and yeah, they are just beautiful. And also, once again, beautiful writing, beautiful world building. So I would highly recommend these books if you're looking to get into fantasy that is inspired by Chinese mythology. So this isn't just dedicated to Sue Lynn Tan's works, but the next one is also a Sue Lynn Tan novel, and that is Immortal. So this is a fantasy romance standalone. This story follows Lin Yan, who is heir to a kingdom who are bound to serve the Immortals. So they don't have a lot of say about what they do as a kingdom, and are very much in service to the Immortals. Lin Yan does inherit the kingdom, and she seeks to break her people's bonds to the Immortals. Then she is summoned to the Immortal realm, and she forms an alliance with the powerful god of war. And then she does find herself torn between the kingdom that she's seeking to liberate and her growing feelings for the Immortal that she should fear the most. And this again was beautifully written. I love the world building, and I did end up really enjoying the story. So it was a little bit slow to set the scene and start, but once I got into it, I was really invested in it, and yeah, I did really enjoy it. And Sue Lynn Tan has really now become one of those authors who is an author. I have loved everything I have read by her, and I do have another book that I have yet to read by her, but I'm really looking forward to anything else that she is going to write. So next up we have 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim, and this is actually inspired by a Grimm's fairy tale called The Six Swans, but Elizabeth Lim has taken this story and she's made it very East Asian. And I wasn't familiar with the Grimm fairy tale, I haven't read that one. So I didn't really know much about the story, but I thought Elizabeth Lim had made this really beautiful, and it did really feel like an Asian inspired story. So this is a YA fantasy, and it tells the story of Princess Shiori, who loses control of her magic at her betrothal ceremony. This then leads her stepmother to curse her brothers, and she turns them into cranes. And then she also places a curse on Shiori, who, if she says anything about what has happened to her, one of her brothers will die. So Shiori is exiled, and she must find a way to break the curse. But the problem is that she is voiceless and alone, so she can't tell anybody what's happened to her, and she is by herself. So she also has to find a way to discover more about her magic and learn how to control that so that she can break the curse. And I love Elizabeth Lim's writing. It did feel very reminiscent of Sue Lynn Tan as well, and as you can see, I also heavily tabbed this book. I just love the way that she took this Western fairy tale and made it her own. It could very well have been Asian fairy tale. And yeah, it is just beautifully written, and I love the plot. I found it very engaging. I wanted to keep reading, but also there were times where it was very heartbreaking. So I feel Elizabeth Lim did a very good job at writing those parts as well. And there is a sequel to this called The Dragon's Promise, which I really need to pick up. And also I have another 3 or 4 Elizabeth Lim books on my TBR, so I would really love to get to those soon. And I'm really hoping that I enjoy them as much as I enjoyed this one. Then I have The Scarlet Alchemist by Kylie Lee Baker, and this is marketed as a YA fantasy, although I feel it does lean a little bit darker, so probably a little bit more appropriate for adults, so maybe it should be classed as new adult. This is set in an alternative version of Tang Dynasty China, and this follows Zilan, who is a gifted but morally complicated young alchemist, and she can raise the dead with her alchemy, but this is an illegal form of alchemy, and if she is discovered, it will have very bad consequences for her and her family. But although Zilan is very happy to carry out this illegal form of alchemy, she is very protective of her family. So when given an opportunity to help support her family, she takes it. So she does start to train as a royal alchemist. That is her dream, and she gets this opportunity to go and train with other very powerful alchemists, and only one of them will be given the title of royal alchemist. So she competes in exams, but then she does end up becoming entangled in a lot of palace politics, and there is a lot of dangerous magic and shifting alliances. And then she does happen to draw the attention of the crown prince, which complicates it a lot more. So I love the fantasy twist on the real period of Tang Dynasty China. I don't know anything really about that period of Chinese history, or really a lot about Chinese history, but I thought it was really inventive to take a real period of history and then add in these dark fantasy elements. And this was a very fast-paced read. There were a lot of twists and turns in the plot, which kept it really going. And I loved that our female main character was morally ambiguous, so she's not just this goody two-shoes who does everything right and is morally above everyone else. She is very complicated, and I do love a complicated character. And I love Kylie Lee Baker's writing, and I do love how she brought this dark death, blood magic into the plot. And I do love how Kylie Lee Baker is not one to shy away from writing about really horrible things. She does a really good job, and I did have a great time with this. I mean, I did put this off for a long time because I didn't know if I was going to enjoy it, but I should have read it a lot sooner because it was really compelling. It was really good. There is also a sequel to this one, and that is The Blood Orchid. And I, again, won't give too many spoilers just in case you haven't read The Scarlet Alchemist, but this one picks up pretty much immediately after the end of the first book. So in the first book, there are some devastating events, and Zilan has to then travel to a hidden island which holds the power to restore life. Again, this was very action-packed, very fast-paced, and I did feel it gave a very compelling conclusion to this duology. And I am also really excited to read more of Kylie Lee Baker's work. So I did read Bat Eater, which was one of my favourite books of 2025. But yeah, I really love her writing style, so I'm really eager to pick up more by her. Then I have a Korean-inspired mythology retelling, and this is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axie. And this is inspired by the story of Shim Cheong. So again, I didn't know about this myth before I read this book. I don't think I've actually read any other Korean-inspired fantasy. So the story follows Mina, who sacrifices herself to calm the storms that threaten her community. And then she's swept into the spirit realm and becomes the sea god's bride. And she meets allies, she faces trials that force her to choose between fate and forging her own paths. And we get a lot of themes of courage, loyalty, and defying destiny. And this one did feel quite reminiscent of the Studio Ghibli film Spirited Away. And I loved the world building and the descriptions, and I think Axie is a very descriptive writer. I did feel like this, however, was very much targeted at a YA audience, and I feel like it was quite short for a fantasy as in a standalone fantasy. So I think there was a lot more depth to be explored, and it could have been expanded, but I did really love this. I loved finding out more about the Korean myth that inspired it, and I would highly recommend it as a starting point for getting into Korean-inspired fantasy. Next, we have The Scorpion and the Night Blossom by Amélie Wenchow. And this is a dark fantasy where war between realms has torn families apart and demons rule the land. And our female main character, An Ying, enters something called the Immortal trials, and these are deadly. So she must participate in brutal challenges, but the reward is great. Surviving these trials could grant her eternal life, but her motive for doing this is because her mother has had her soul taken away by a demon, so she wants to win this so that she can save her mother's life. And she has to navigate deadly competitors who want to eliminate her from the competition. There's also the immortal gods, and there are a lot of deeper mysteries in the immortal realm. So this is described as a romantasy, but I feel that it was very balanced between romance and actual plot. And I love the story, I love the romance between the two main characters. I also loved the writing, and I really appreciated the richness of the world. So we have demons, we have immortals, and although there's a lot of tropes that will feel familiar, I feel like Amélie Wen Zhao did make it her own. And I really can't wait for book 2, which I think is coming out very soon. And the next book is a Mulan reimagining, and this is The Night Ends with Fire by KX Song. And this again is the first in, I believe, a duology. So we follow our main character Mei Lin, and she is desperate to escape an oppressive life and a forced marriage. So she disguises herself as a man and enlists herself in the army amid a conflict of the three kingdoms. So amid battlefield horrors and also some spirit magic, political intrigue and personal transformation, she must decide what kind of warrior and what kind of person she wants to be. So it does deal very much with morality. And I loved following our character Mei Lin as she steps into this role that she never expected. What I enjoyed most about this story was really seeing the transformation of our female main character from someone who's very much constrained and is not able to choose what to do with her life to somebody who very much takes control and tries to change her destiny. So I loved the writing. I felt that it was compelling, and I liked the fact that the author had chosen to do a Mulan retelling, but really gone back to what I believe would have been the original inspiration for Mulan and really making that story her own. And I really found the female main character to be a very strong female lead. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And there is also some romance in this book, but it very much is secondary to the plot. It doesn't take center stage. It's really more about our character finding herself. And yeah, I had a really good time with this one, and I can't wait for book 2. So those are my 10 Asian-inspired fantasy book recommendations. I hope that you found some books that you're really interested to read. Do let me know in the comments if this is a type of fantasy that you enjoy reading, and also if you have any recommendations for books which are similar to those that I've mentioned. I'm always on the lookout for more recommendations. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!